In any one day of the war, there is fighting on many fronts. This is one battlefront, the front on which American boys face the enemy. Yes, this is one front, and this is another front, spread over the face of America. Like the other fronts, it is big and complicated, so big that only a few men in the whole nation can understand its real capacity for waging war. Here is one small sector of this front, one American city. A city full of war industries, a city full of war workers. On the 926th day after Pearl Harbor, in the month of Allied invasion, one of the factories in this town celebrated an event, the manufacture of the 250,000th 50 caliber machine gun for the armed forces. One machine gun, a deadly weapon. The 250,000th. It may not seem strange that a factory should produce 250,000 machine guns. And the quantity production of two different types of propellers in one factory may not seem unusual. In addition to quantity production of hydraulic aircraft controls and many other kinds of war products. That is what factories are for, to produce things. The strange thing is that only a short time before, these factories were producers of electric refrigerators, the world's largest. Almost overnight, they became the world's largest producers of 50 caliber machine guns. In this factory, as in so many others in America, the people did something which tripped up the thinking of the enemy. The enemy knew we were manufacturers. They knew we had men. But they didn't know we could change our way of life enough to give our men the tools of war in overpowering quantity. The Axis didn't count this ability to change among our secret weapons. This is the story of what it takes to make such a change. The story of what ability to change means to all of us, now and after the war. Long before the manufacture of refrigerators was stopped, in fact 16 months before Pearl Harbor, plans were being made for the mass production of war products in this factory. How could the experience, the capacity, the manpower, the facilities of this factory best be applied to turning out products of war? After considering all important factors such as available factory space, machinery, workers, finances, and after the products were agreed upon, plant layout engineers made new production layouts and redesigned the factories to fit them. Out came peacetime machines, many of them to go into storage until after the war. Chaos is the word to describe the appearance of the factories while the changes were being made. New machinery was located, scarce machinery. Long before the factory was ready to hit its stride, the great job of training began. The job of replacing many of these men who were called to the fighting front. The job not only of replacing, but of adding. Women as well as men answered the call for more help. All these people had to be trained, for not too many had even seen the inside of a factory. A whole way of life exchanged for another. Many went from quiet retirement back to the job. From high school and college to the war production front. 16,000 is what it took to do the job, just in this one factory alone. And here they are, free Americans, working in a free enterprise. And here is what they learned. In the propeller plants, one of which was entirely new and the other formerly devoted to making refrigerators, the job is to take these rough forgings and turn out propellers like these. That's the job. Some of the people at the head of the production line learn to drill this hole in the bottom of the blade where connection is made with the hub. Form drilling taper bore in shank, that's called. Each one perfectly drilled, each one exactly like the next. Others learned about milling, the careful step-by-step operations which cut away unwanted metals seemingly like butter. Each milling machine taking off just the right amount of surplus. Each milling tool automatically following an ingenious master pattern to guarantee that thousands of propeller blades would be identical in every detail of contour. These people learned to grind the surfaces of the blades on batteries of grinding machines. They grind them to the smoothness of fine silverware, for the smallest nick can grow to spell disaster when the propeller is part of an American plane and is churning the air over 1,000 times a minute. Blades must measure exactly right. They must be just so thick and not a hair's width thicker. Specially designed gauges let these people know quickly whether they have to split a few more hairs to get it right. Others learned all about the fine art of balancing. That plastic shield was developed to protect the balanced blade from air currents in the factory. Any error in the weight of these blades is multiplied nearly 2,000 times in flight. And these people have been taught that any error on this front is failure on this front. Failure of a mission, loss of American lives. While all those people were learning about making blades, others found out that propellers have more than blades. They have such queer-sounding parts as barrels and spiders, the sturdy parts that hold the blades in position. They've got to be sturdy, for in flight, each blade tries to tear itself away from its hub with a force equal to the weight of a loaded freight car. Yes, there was a lot to learn in the barrel and spider departments, including hundreds of different checks and double checks. There are over 1,400 parts that had to be made and brought together and skillfully assembled. You're right. Nobody has to learn to put all 1,400 parts together. Each has his own job, and he knows that job almost well enough to do it blindfolded. That's the way it is in a big war plant. You've learned your job, and you're proud of it. But what a stranger you'd be if you worked on propellers and walked into the machine gun plant. These people know their jobs, just as you know yours. But they'd have to go into training to learn how to build propellers. All the jobs are different, yes, but they have a lot in common. For most of the jobs are precision jobs. Just as propellers have to measure and balance just so, this machine gun bolt must be machined to extreme accuracy. The reason lies in the gun itself, the Browning caliber 50. This gun is the standard weapon of the Air Forces. It fires over 800 rounds a minute, blasting each bullet toward its target at a speed of more than half a mile a second. It takes 200 parts to make up this gun. Each moving part must slide past its neighbor with such smoothness and sureness that there will be the least amount of friction, the least possibility of jamming, the least vibration to interfere with the gunner's accurate aim. In addition, parts must be identical in measurement, so that any one of thousands of parts will fit any one of thousands of guns. Like peas in a pod is too loose a description for the similarity of these parts. They are literally factory-made, identical twins. precision tools, precise ways of thinking about their jobs. That was the way the peacetime employees of the factory had to think, so precision was no stranger to them. The new ones learned quickly under skillful training. This is the Browning .50 caliber in quantity production, something unknown until this war, when production men let loose their talents on a problem which had been largely a hand production operation. Many changes in production thinking were suggested and accepted, and the total score of all the new ideas has been a revolution in machine gun manufacture. Modern manufacturing methods have increased the firing rate of the gun, saved raw stock for other vital war uses, replaced critical materials with non-critical materials, and resulted in production at 5 times the original schedule in improved quality with only twice as many machines and people, and at less than 1/4 the original cost. Here is a good example of new thinking applied to an old problem, preparing guns for shipment to the fighting fronts. These machine guns must be shipped to our fighting men all over the world. Temperature and climatic conditions from the heat of the tropics to the frigid north, from desert sand to corrosive salt water. Guns must be protected against all these elements of nature. Soldiers in the last war can well remember this scene. Guns packed in thick, heavy grease to provide the needed protection. 8 hours of slow, tedious cleaning. They don't do it that way in this factory. They seal each gun in a series of transparent, moisture-proof wrappings, like fine food being delivered to your home. Special drying material sealed inside provides a whole year's protection against the elements. In any part of the world, these guns can go immediately into action. This is typical of the contributions of American industry in supplying American fighters with the best of fighting equipment. In this case, the result of a manufacturer with specialized knowledge of moisture control, applying it to improve the effectiveness of a fighting weapon. New thinking, a new solution to an old problem, important in war, and opening up new peacetime possibilities in packaging. It is not hard, seeing these factories, to understand the result of the new thinking and of all the effort. One machine gun taking its place on one plane. All these guns equipping a giant sky fleet of thousands of planes, thundering out over enemy territory. You can look at one propeller and see an American fighter plane climbing for advantage over an enemy. You can see all these propellers and figure the bombing force they can pull over enemy ground. Staggering winged armadas, including the mighty superfortress, the B-29. But there is a hidden meaning to the whole story. Here, in the ability of American industry, in the ability of these people, of all the people in American industry, to meet and conquer a challenging new problem, is the secret weapon the enemy did not expect. Yes, and it's only in times of a great crisis that we ourselves fully realize that with our modern convenient way of life, we have the imagination that meets change with change, the hard fiber that matches effort with effort, the courage to put our real resources to work. That is our secret weapon. It's ours for use in war, for use in peace.